Hello standardbred lovers, Nick here from Raising the Standards. Welcome to this week's free Winter Wednesdays standardbred video training. Today I want to just take it nice and easy and talk about all of the things that I wish I had have known when I first started working with standardbreds, because they are such a quirky, unique breed of horse, and I think sometimes it's really easy to get stuck in those ruts that we talk about often here at Raising the Standards, and sort of to lose focus on the things that really matter. And so I want to give you a little bit of a cheat sheet overview, I suppose, of the things that I have found that have really made a difference to me, and things that I wish I had have known at the very beginning. So first of all, I will say this. I wish I had have known and had a little bit more perspective that it's not always going to be a straightforward journey. We are working with half a ton of animal with a mind of its own, and so that really does lend itself, I think, to the scenario where things are going to go wrong occasionally. You're going to ask something of your horse that they don't understand, or that they don't know the answers to, or they might just react like an animal that has a reaction basically, and that can be disappointing and frustrating. But I think it's really important to bear in mind that these horses, particularly ex-harness horses, they're going through so much change. Everything from the way that their environment is, going from often living in stables and small yards to going out to herd environments and having to figure out a pecking order, massive dietary change, muscle change, routine change. Racehorses are often in quite a regimented, predictable structure, and a lot of them really get a lot of comfort from knowing what's coming every day. And so to be thrown out in a paddock where their interactions with humans are a little bit more random and based around their humans' lives, it can be strange for them, and something that they have to learn. There are going to be setbacks in your training, which you'll have to have a bit of mental fortitude sometimes to overcome. I think knowing not to expect it to necessarily be like, I want to do this and I'm just going to take a straight line, I'm going to get there and it's going to be all happy days. It's a little bit more realistic, and I think preparing yourself mentally for the fact that it's going to be up and down, there are going to be challenges along the way that you're going to have to push through, really puts you in a good frame of mind, not to take it personally, I suppose, because our horses don't do things to offend us or to upset us. They actually just don't have the mental capacity to try that. I think what horses generally are doing is reacting to the environment around them and learning from past experiences, and sometimes they might have a reaction, and from that reaction consolidate a new behavior. So they're not sitting there trying to chalk up wins against us humans. And I think sometimes when things are consistently going wrong, we can get in a headspace where we really take it personally. We take it like our horse is trying to upset us. And the thing I know really well about standardbreds, and something I would consider to be quite typical to the whole breed, is that they do try. They are these horses that really get a buzz out of doing the right thing, out of pleasing their humans. So they're not always going to get the answers right, particularly in those early stages, but I guarantee you they're going to be trying. And if they're not trying, or you're finding your horse is a little bit sour and grumpy, maybe you need to explore whether they're feeling okay, because sometimes our standardbreds are quite stoic, and which means that they can endure a lot of pain, and sometimes behavioral problems can actually be a result of an underlying physical illness or ailment, or a little bit of strain and muscle soreness, which can make them a little bit reluctant to go and have a person sit on their back and exercise. So I think sometimes we have to really listen to our horse, and that's probably my next point. So a nice little segue in, first point being, it's not always going to be straightforward, but second point, we often have to listen to our horse, and our horse only has so many ways that they can communicate to us. So I think a really big thing for me has always been to try and look at the horse in front of me. I actually adapt my retraining systems based on the horse in front of me. Those of you who are part of my Retraining the Standardbred Track to Hack course know that there's sort of a step-by-step system that I typically follow for most horses. I do this, then this is how I do it, this is why I do it, sort of little process. But, you know, I also work with the horse that's in front of me. So if I've got a horse who's a little bit more sensitive or reactive and spooky or nervous, you know, I'm just going to sort of pull my energy back to match them and really make sure I'm a source of comfort. But also, if my horse is a bit more bolshy and confident and arrogant sometimes, you know, I've really got to sort of match what's coming at me. But so too, in terms of, you know, listening to your horse, there is that element of matching what you've got. But there's also the aspect which is huge in standardbred retraining, because rehabilitation and that physical development, that remuscling of a whole animal who is designed to do designed conformationally, is designed to pull a cart really fast, and who has a different set of muscles developed during racing, to then transition them to do pretty much the opposite in many ways, to actually load bear a rider and to have this strong top line muscle and to work long and low and over the back. You know, that takes a big shift. And so we also have to listen to our horse if they're trying to tell us along the way that something isn't quite right. Maybe they're fussy with their mouth, and so we need to look at dentistry and bitting, sorry. Maybe they are, you know, a little bit, grumpy at tack up time, and they might be trying to indicate that they're a little bit sore or girthy, so you might need a body worker. There are so many things that our horse might be trying to tell us. But the thing about standardbreds, as I said earlier, is that they're quite stoic. So they will endure a lot of pain before they complain. So I think being really tuned into your horse and taking the time to really listen to their body language cues can go a long way in the long run. Because if you can pick up some little subtle issues before they become a problem that your horse has endured for a long time before they just crack it and say no more, and you're gonna have to push a standardbred pretty hard to get that not doing this anymore sort of reaction. What that can actually do is, if you get to that point, some of the behaviors, that behavior, the reaction to I don't want to anymore, might be something like a buck or a rear, and then you've got a set of behaviors that you have to sort of undo and address. And horses can also anticipate pain if it's been there for a long time in the periphery. When it's no longer there, they can often be worried about it or anticipating it still, even long after it's been treated and resolved. So I think watching your horse's behavior for signs of discomfort is really important. I think watching your horse for signs of their personality or just their uniqueness and the way that they react to things around them and the way that they learn is really important, because you can really start to enhance your training if you're matching what you're given and very consistent in the aids and cues that you're giving your horse. I think that those things are going to take you a really long way as well. I think celebrating the little wins is something I talk about a lot as well, but what that really means is trying to find the joy in your horsemanship experience. And when I first started raising the standards, I've talked about this before, I was a little bit random about how I went about things, and then I sort of shifted into mode through figuring out how to change my mindset and to plan and become more systemized. I became a little bit more professional and a little bit more streamlined in how I did things. So I managed to take that up and down sort of thing I talked about it not being straightforward to begin with, and I started to make the process a lot simpler just through experience and learning and replicating things that have been working for me. But along the way, I started to sort of get a bit more systemized, and you've got to sort of balance it out, I think, between being really intentional about how you go about your horsemanship so that you're getting a good result, so that you are moving towards your goals and dreams, which keeps you motivated, but also not being so forward focused that you forget to appreciate all of the little things that your horse is learning along the way and that you're learning, how you're developing your knowledge and skills as a horse person. That should be recognized. You know, we often do that in our own time, and there's no one there to say, hey man, you're doing such a great job. You know, look at the horse person you are now compared to 12 months ago. We often don't acknowledge some of the great things about what we're doing as horse people, but also, you know, our horse is learning things every time they come into contact with us. So, you know, to be really recognizing and appreciating that, so that you're not just celebrating the big moments like my horse can canter, but you might be celebrating little moments like my horse used to be really nervous when I went out for a trail ride walking down past my front gate because my litter box is there and it's scary, a little bit spooky. And now he walks on a loose rein and doesn't worry. And that tells me that he really trusts me not to put him in a vulnerable position and that he's really comfortable with things. You know, they're the sort of little moments that you can feel really chuffed about, and you've got to feel really chuffed every day. You've got to find the joy. So if there are challenges, you know, those are going to be the lower moments, and you've got to really have those little highs and wins that keep you feeling great, that you have stopped to recognize along the way. So I think that celebrating the little wins, I'm not going to go over it too much, but it's so important for your happiness and for the joy and for the fact that we all buy horses because we love them, but because we really enjoy spending time with horses, and we don't want to gloss over the happy moments because we're so focused on the things we can't do or where we want to go, that it, you know, we're not smelling the roses along the way. I think that really, for me, was something that I wish I had have known at the beginning, and also when I started to get more systemized, that yes, I have a way of doing things, but I also feel like I get a lot more happiness and enjoyment out of my horses when I do make sure that every day, you know, I'm appreciating things. And that's why if you do join us for our 30 Days to Standardbred Success program, we have a journal in there. And every day you're going to answer some questions and do a different activity. But you're also going to be jotting that down. And so what that's going to do is every day you're going to have a moment where you get to go, I did that really well and that was great. And then at the end of the month, you can flip back through and go, I've got 30 days of little wins and achievements, and that feels really great. Another thing I wish I had have known at the start was not to rush the process. And I think I've certainly talked about this in the past, but just because you can doesn't mean you should all the time. And I think sometimes we get really rushed as standardbred people to do certain things because we want to do more or because we want to prove people wrong. For example, we might really rush when we get a new standardbred to get them to the point where they're cantering, so that we can go to riding club and join a club and do competitions and rally days, because we're going to need to canter to do that. Or we want to prove that, no, my standardbred can canter, and all those people who have said standardbreds can't canter, I'm going to prove them wrong and show them differently. Sometimes rushing to get a result on something which is quite a big deal, or something that comes a little later on down the track and a lot more naturally if we put a lot of steps in, you know, really can make the hugest difference when you start to level up. You will, and I've said this before, you're going to be able to gloss over skills and miss little spots and not get too like nitpicky on things. You know, you can get around a level 5 and 4 dressage test with your horse sort of looking to the outside and counter flex. Doesn't really matter. But when you want to start getting to level 3 and above, you need your horse flexed correctly, accepting of the contact, moving over the back and through the body correctly. If you haven't been riding your horse in a particular way and missed steps along the way, it's going to become quite problematic for you later on down the track. So what I will say is this: I wish I had have known at the beginning to take more time being really nitpicky, which allows me to not only learn little skills and to refine and to become better and to set myself up for success later, but I also naturally then start to experience those little wins, because every time I do something new and I do it really well, I feel a sense of accomplishment. So there's many reasons why you should take your time through that process. And that's something I certainly think is really valuable from the get-go, really. And finally, I will say this, the power of community and having people around you to support you through your retraining journey is just so important. And that's why Raising the Standards still exists. So I haven't been a racehorse retrainer for 4 or 5 years now. You know, stopped doing that, then went and had kids, and life's a little bit nuts at the moment. I have 2 children home with me full time, and I'm a stay-at-home mum. And I don't really need to be doing horse things at all, I suppose, but I am, and I'm here because for the sole reason that when I started with my standardbred in 2001, the internet wasn't like what it is today. There wasn't an accessibility of information. At the time, nobody in my world had a standardbred, and it was really hard to access support, guidance, information that was going to actually help me along, and also just friends who understood what I was going through. Now, we're really lucky, and that's why we have programs like our Standardbred community, which is a free Facebook community. Why in our programs like our 30 Days to Standardbred Success, you know, we have an exercise every day. We have that journal I talked about, but the community side of things and having a group of people there to support you and encourage you to answer your questions in the moment, and to pick you up on those hard days and say, no, you've got this, you know, keep going. it's just vital as a horse person and as a human being. I think sometimes we can't always just rely on ourselves to have all the answers, to go out and get all the answers, to have the mental strength to really keep pushing when we don't want to push any longer. You know, that's where people around us really are important, and particularly in an intensive program like that, there was no way I was going to run a 30-day sort of program that is so intensive in terms of the content that you're going to learn without having people there keeping you going and in your corner cheering you on. And also, I will talk about this in the next few weeks. We are going to reboot our membership program here, which used to be called Team RTS, but it's going through a bit of a rebrand. I think what we're going to end up calling it is our online standardbred club, where we actually are going to get together in a more intensive way, which I'm going to talk about later on, because I feel like I felt really alone when I first started, and I was a junior as well, which is even harder again. And I feel like I got through my standardbred retraining journey, and then I actually outgrew my 15 one-hand small standing mare quite early, and then I moved on to a thoroughbred, and he scared the pants off me. And I kind of wish that I had people. I had gone from adjusting at an equestrian, like a pony club grounds that had 60 kids running around, same age as me, all sort of naturally motivating each other. I'll meet you at the paddock, we'll do this. I then had moved my horses home, and I feel like having challenges with my horse, doesn't matter if he was a thoroughbred or a standardbred, you know, we can appreciate as standardbred people, particularly though, when things go wrong, if you don't have someone there to support you who understands, it's so much harder to keep going. So coming home, having trouble with my horse, and then not having people around me, I feel like that was the reason why I actually stopped riding for several years before coming back in my early 20s and getting back into horses again. I actually walked completely away from horses, sold my horses and stepped back. And look at it now and realize that we have all this beautiful technology that we can use to make sure, and that's why Raising the Standards exists. I want to make sure that no standardbred rider goes it alone anymore, because it is so much harder. The power of having people around you is so important, and that's something that, if you're still here watching this and part of our programs, you know, I really appreciate you being here, because each and every person who starts a dialogue, answers a question, tells someone you're doing a great job, you're all contributing to this positive feeling that, you know, I wish I had have had. So in terms of this talk today, it's not something I wish I had have known, it's something I wish I had have had. I wish I had have known that having people in my corner, knowledgeable people to share information and ask questions, but also just people there who really care about me, who are invested in my journey, and who are going to help me through the tough times and really celebrate with me through the good moments. You know, that's going to help me to feel so much better about my horsemanship journey on the whole. And when life gets crazy busy, they're going to be the people that are there pulling me into the horse world, making sure I don't accidentally miss 3 months of horses, because I'm constantly talking about them, and that's an important part of who I am as a person, and I can connect with people who are going to be there for me. So it's not really something I wish I had known at the start, but I definitely wish I had have had people around me who understood standardbreds to help me and to support me. And so for you, I really hope that through our communities and programs here at Raising the Standards, that you don't have to feel like you ever have to go it alone, and that you can share a little bit of success and good feelings and good vibes just from being part of our programs. So yeah, that's probably just a bit of an overview of the things I wish I had known, and the opportunities I had and the people around me when I began, because I feel like those are the things that have really made a difference over the years. All right, guys, I look forward to next week's video.